E.
You know, recently here on BackToFrankBlack.com, we've been talking a lot about our top 5 episodes. And a lot of people have put forward lists. I had my list. You guys commented on that, put out your lists. We had a podcast recently where Troy and James went over their favorite episodes, their top 5. And while different episodes were coming through in people's top 5s, not a single person listed Human Essence as one of their favorites. In fact, if you ask most Millennium fans, they will say that Human Essence is their least favorite episode. There's quite a few who say that when they watch through their box sets of the seasons, they actually skip over this episode and refuse to watch it. There are quite a few people who actually say that this is the episode that made them give up on Season 3 of Millennium. Now, while I'm not going to stand here and defend it as a great episode or say that, you know, it's one of my favorites or anything like that. It's obviously not. However, I don't think I hate it quite as much as everyone else does. In fact, I'm certain I don't hate it as much as everyone else does because I think there are a few redemptive qualities to the episode. I tell you what, let's watch a clip and we'll come back and discuss this here.
This is an OPR investigation. You know nobody can get the details.
I've worked a half a dozen cases with this woman. I know her enough to know that this is unwarranted.
We didn't enter this lightly, Frank. We had enough indication on this. We had no choice. We had to move.
Indications of what? Wait a minute. I still have enough contacts around here to find out, Andy. You're not going to do this just to slow me down.
She failed a random drug test.
That's absurd.
I had him run it twice, Frank.
What was she tested for?
Heroin. Now, we are not being stupid here, and we're not being hasty. We won't press charges till we're absolutely certain.
Just the accusation could ruin her.
I will do everything in my power to make sure this investigation is thorough and fair. But when she's finished with her bureau rep, they want me to send her home.
I want to talk to her privately about it.
Frank, if you talk to her, anything you hear will go straight to the OPR. You know that. I don't think you want to put yourself in that kind of position.
I'll make up my own mind about what position I'll be put in, Andy, okay?
Now, the writer of the episode, Michael Duggan, has actually come forward and said he had a hard time writing for Millennium. He had a hard time connecting with the characters and dealing with the themes of Millennium. There's also been discussions from guys like Chip Johansson who say that in Season 3, they had a tough time balancing the serial killer of the week crime aspect of Season 1 with the metaphysical, spiritual side of Season 2. And along the way, there were so many conspiracies and giant story arcs, and things got really complex that it really became difficult in Season 3 to try to balance everything and try to figure out where the show was supposed to go. So, with that in mind, you can kind of see why this episode feels a little schizophrenic. On the one hand, it really wants to be an X-Files episode, and on the other hand, it's dealing with everything that's come before in Millennium.
大哥，我帶咗你啲嘢來啊！
證據？
你自己嚟睇下。
Yeah.
Hey, look up!
Hey! Freaking monster.
Here's the thing. This episode is really a crime drama. You've got this batch of smack hitting the streets that's gone bad and is somehow messing people up beyond the realm of normal smack messing people up. I mean, who doesn't like to do a little heroin every now and again? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, no? Okay, maybe it's just me. But there's something about this batch that's just screwing people up left and right, and Emma Hollis is trying to figure out why. And the reason is simply because her sister is one of the victims. So the question comes along of what's really wrong with this? How did it get to be wrong? And is there something more going on here?
Now look, wherever you're going with this, it's all over now.
It's a compound developed 6 years ago by the United States Army in a research facility in Maryland. Found its way to the streets of Canada.
If you were thinking about making an accusation or turning this into some kind of crusade, I would warn against it, Frank.
Wait a minute, isn't that what the FBI was ready to do to Emma Hollis?
I don't make the rules.
There are no rules, Andy. Only expedients and necessities.
Look, Frank, all's been forgiven.
No, Andy, it hasn't.
Now, to be fair, the conspiratorial aspect of this episode, this idea that this government-designed bioweapon somehow leaked onto the streets and got experimented with and put into this drug and sent out, and they were using junkies as kind of these, you know, I don't know what you want to call them, these testers, these incubators, these, you know, whatever, these experimental subjects for this bioweapon is an interesting story. And the idea of that conspiracy is actually pretty interesting. The problem is that is an X-Files type conspiracy. The government always doing these weird experiments on the people trying to figure stuff out. Now, to be fair, if you took this storyline and tweaked it a little bit and kind of reworked it and kind of repositioned the focus, you would have had an episode very similar to Walkabout, which most of you like. So what went wrong here? Why is this episode considered so bad?
Who the hell are you? Poking your nose in the wrong holes, Lady Cat.
Is your name Folga?
Where'd you hear that name?
I'm a junkie who says you're selling bad smack.
Say it again. Say it again, and I'll kill you dead.
I just don't want her dead.
Well, on the one hand, there are huge holes in the logic. There's problems with the way Emma won't talk to anybody. The way she has to, you know, she just decides to go into these flop houses and to go into these drug-infested, you know, areas and just kind of hang out and try to find the bad guys instead of saying, hey, you know what? I work for this branch of the government that, I don't know, investigates crimes. Maybe there's something more to it that she can look into. It just doesn't make a lot of sense on that level, and that's really where it falls apart, because we don't really want to see them going off on these kind of random, you know, crime investigations. There should have been something more to tie it back into the FBI. Make it an FBI investigation and continue to show Emma and Frank as these, you know, beacons of goodness within the government, trying to find out what's really going on against maybe this shadow part of the government who's working against its own people. So that's really kind of where it falls apart, but I think if you take it on that level of this government experiment gone wrong, there really is something redemptive about the episode. But that's really just the one thing that's... I mean, the rest of it's just crap.